Hello and welcome to episode 49 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast. This week we've got Guy and Ian on the panel alongside me. We're discussing the Tamworth at home game and look ahead to Boreham Wood at home in the FA Trophy. We've also got Julian, who's sent in some voice notes from his first co-coms at home at the Rec. So he's got a little behind the scenes clip. So they're going to come straight after this intro. And then you'll hear the panel debate after that. So enjoy the episode and up the shots.
It's Saturday, match day. Shots are at home to Tamworth at the Rec. Really looking forward to this one. As I've said in the previous podcast, I'm feeling very privileged to be co-commentator at the game today, and it's my first home game, so really looking forward to it. Just heading towards the ground now in my car. Fortunately, a bit of traffic on the Hog's Back, which has held me up, but we'll be aiming to get there between 1:30 and 1:45. So it's now 1:45. I've parked up and I'm just walking towards the ground and just walking through Manor Park in Aldershot, which actually brings back so many memories of when I was younger. Lots of kids and their mums playing in the park, and hopefully lots of Shot supporters of the future. The next thing to do now is head on under the railway bridge and then round to the side of the Rec, where there's the gate entrance, where I'll be giving my name in and getting a media pass. So that will be the next step. Speak soon. Just coming up to 2:00 now and the floodlights are in view. A few people milling around, but not too much happening at the moment. Just your die-hard supporters that are desperate for their fix of the shots. We're just about an hour away now. I'm just about to head into the ground and meet up with Rob, where we'll set up the comms equipment and dial into the BBC Surrey radio station. So I've made my way into the prestigious media box at the Shots. It's obviously the first time I've been sitting in here, and one of the things that really interests me with this is all the kit and caboodle that comes with putting on a presentation for the online listeners and also for the TV listeners as well. So I've managed to take my seat next to Rob. So Rob, good to see you again.
Yeah, good afternoon, Julian. Great to have you join us for your fourth time now, but your first home game in the absence of Lord Gibbs himself, who's having a day in London, I think. Yeah, good to have you both here nice and early. No dramas today.
No dramas
so far.
So far, yeah. We've not actually had a game together where it's gone super smoothly, has it? But
no, exactly. Just thinking about the game itself, Tamworth. Weirdly, I was just doing my research before you got here, and they haven't drawn away from home in 10 games, only once this season. So that might be a slightly less scary one of those runs that might come to an end at Aldershot. Obviously, Aldershot have probably drawn amongst the most in the division this year. We hope, of course, that the Shots have got enough in the tank to get all 3 points today, which would make it back-to-back league wins, 3 wins on the trot, and unbeaten in 8.
Absolutely. Players have just come out onto the pitch for a little bit of a warm-up. Rob, could you just talk us through very quickly the kit that we've got here? Because it's although obviously we can't see it for the podcast, it's always good to understand what's involved with setting up.
Yeah, the actual kit itself is probably more reliable than people think, but there are other things that can go on and they go wrong, and that's pretty much to do with connectivity, really. These kits were initially designed to be used with ISDN lines, a bit like a phone line, and they were pretty robust, but they do need a little bit of servicing, and the contracts the BBC has with clubs for them and with the company that sort of BT, I think it was, that look after the services, and that's kind of running out a bit now. Plus there's other ways to connect now, and we now have a hardwire set up here at the EBB, which has been pretty robust. Another way we connect sometimes is through a dongle, where we create our own Wi-Fi signal. And these kits have actually been adapted for that, so from what they were originally designed for. We essentially have got what's called a Kubi, or a mixer box, in front of us, and on that there's various controls. Some of them are to do with connecting, others are just purely to do with, so the volume that you and I hear each other, the volume that we hear the studio in the background, and then we've got my microphone, your microphone, and the sound effects microphone and your microphone. So all those things are controlled. I'm basically carrying to every game I do a case with the mixer box and the power socket in, plus then another bag full of microphones and headphones and gloves and tape and just about everything else. And you know, the way I work it is I can do up to a 15-minute walk with all that kit. Anything beyond that, I'm going to have to either be going by car or bus or taxi, because you feel like your arms are going to drop off.
Yeah.
You know?
The interesting thing for me is that, and the listeners may not appreciate it, but it's with regard to being in touch with the studio as well. You're always listening on your headphones to the studio, aren't you? So it's like you've got studio coming in one ear, having to communicate to the listeners through your voice, but also listening out for other things too. It's a quite a tough job, isn't it?
It is. I'll be honest with you, I absolutely used to love what I did for about 3 years, just sitting alongside Gav Dennison, who commentated on the shots for 11 years, effectively what you're doing today. And whilst it's nice to have done your research, and I know you will have done, and I used to, effectively you can rock up quarter of an hour, 20 minutes before the game, put the headphones on, the microphone, sit there and just kind of watch what you watch and come in when you come in. And I'm not taking anything away from the job that you do, because it is a skill and you've naturally started well at it, and I'm very comfortable with you alongside me. But that's relatively easy. I used to sit there in your seat and think I could never do what Gav does. There's too much going on, it's too chaotic. He's got to watch, he's got to talk to me, he's got to listen to his headphones, he's got to look at other scores, he's got to read out people who are interacting with him. But it's weird, it's just a layer type thing. Anything you do in life where you build the layers on and you get used to doing it, it just gradually gets easier. And it's never always perfect, that's for sure, but you just get to a point where you relax with the fact that you could say the wrong thing. I'm actually better live than I am when I'm going to record something, and I know I've got the opportunity to record it again if I get it wrong. I like the pressure of being live.
Yeah, and also with the pre-match bits and pieces you do, you obviously go on to the Radio Surrey roundabout now, actually, don't you? With normally team news, and again that's unscripted, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one section of it that's scripted, or certainly supposed to be scripted, and that's the initial 1 minute taster. That should be really impactful and should encapsulate, setting the scene really, really well. And then the second one is usually just with the team news, the number of changes, formation, etc. And then depending on what else is going on, like today it's relatively quiet for us on radio. We're going to do one match preview and a half-time report, and that's it. And that's largely because BBC Surrey is focused, understandably, is on Brighton today. They're playing at 3 o'clock, their Premier League. So from my own point of view, I enjoy them all, and I like the fact that it's slightly different each time. But I can relax more into days like today, when it's largely just you and I chatting to the online listeners.
Thank you, Rob, so much. I will come back to you a little bit later, guys, with perhaps half times and full times. Thank you. So we're in place, just waiting for the team news. In fact, the team news has just arrived, so Rob will be sharing the team news with BBC Surrey shortly. And just waiting for the finish to the warm-up. Crowd's getting bigger, and looking forward to kick-off. So full time here at the Rec, and a really entertaining game. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed that. Rob's just packing away his stuff, and then it'll be heading on down to get a player interview and hopefully some words with either Tommy or one of the backroom staff. And that's it for the day.
I just want to add pressure's building on Julian. 4 games, no defeats, but we cannot call that run until there's a win or a loss. So you're either close to being a hero or close to hitting 0.
And it's the red book, Rob. It's the red book that follows me around everywhere. But thank you so much, Rob. Really appreciated that.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great fun, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
So the Shots came away from Saturday's game at home to Tamworth with another 2-2 draw, making it 3 home league draws. 3 home league 2-2 draws in a row since, so Woking and Braintree in between this one, with Jack Barham and Luca Woodhouse on the score sheet for the Shots, and Dan Creaney, Tamworth's number 9, scoring twice, once from a Tonks long throw. As expected, that was how the game panned out, with plenty of gamesmanship, plenty of time wasting, plenty of attempts to get a throw in on the left or the right side to get the ball in the box. And it worked. We were broadly rattled for large parts of the game. I'm going to come to you first, Guy. What were your impressions of the game in itself, and what more could we have done to gain 3 points?
Yeah, what more could we have done? I mean, that's the really challenging question. Look, it was actually quite an enjoyable game, I thought, and the first half just whizzed past. I thought I was very impressed by the defence. I thought we really seemed to have sort of tightened things up in the first half, particularly with the central duo of Woodhouse and Armitage. Really, I felt very quite confident with them. Of course, then we got to the half time. We thought, brilliant, we've managed to make it. Look, we had a lot of pressure, but it just wasn't telling in any kind of significant way. There were a few chances here and there, but nothing that stood out concrete. What I did notice, of course, that Henry was dropping back, and we had and the forward line was looking pretty good. With Barrett and Barham up front and Henry supporting. It's kind of what I've really been wanting to see all season, but it just didn't lead to anything. And then, of course, the fate, as fates would have it, come out after half time, and of course we concede within the first 5 minutes. And we've been talking about this, on WhatsApp over the last few weeks. And I've even sort of shared with you guys, sort of where the number of goals that we've conceded, in that first 15 minutes after the second half starts. We continually concede in those 15 minutes. That's our weakest spot. And if we can just ride that out, but we didn't. Fair play. We managed to get back into it. Of course, we went behind again, but we did get back again. So there is something quite encouraging about the fact that we've managed to fight back and get to recover from going goal down, and then another goal. And we may almost have possibly had a chance to take it in the final few minutes. But honestly, I think the question is whether did we drop 2 points, or was it a point gained? My feeling is probably more that it was a point gained, because Tamworth had some opportunities as well, and they beyond just the goals that they got. So what more can we do? I think the forward line is starting to create opportunities, but my general feeling is overall, watching Aldershot and also watching National League, is how much if you don't play the ball forward fast enough, quick enough, 2 feet, then what happens is you get caught up with very strong defenses at the other end, just packing men behind the ball. And this I've seen this throughout the season. It also obviously didn't help about the quality of the pitch. I mean, it looked really poor. And I was watching the game thinking, this is a pitch that looks like it's March or April rather than January. And we saw a couple of balls bobbling around, miss kicks. So quite understandable that we weren't playing it through as well as we could. Ultimately, though, I thought it was a good performance. It's just disappointing that we're just not able to get that win. And having come off the back of a decent win previously, to sort of then slip back into draws, it's frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned the pitch, which has obviously been used plenty in January. We'll get another 2 games on it in the next 2 weeks. So hopefully there's not too much bad weather coming our way because there might be some postponements. Um, yeah, Ian, what did you make of Saturday? And was it the pitch? Was it the was it how quick we were getting it forward before Tamworth were back in their two banks of four defending? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's comes down a lot to defence really, because we've had three home league 2-2s in a row, and it's also the fourth if you count Halifax. That's four games in a row where Aldershot have scored two or three goals in a game at home, and it's not been enough to win yet since that Altrincham win, what, mid to late November. So I think we're doing enough going forward, even if some of our goals do sort of rely a little bit on some Josh Barrett magic. But it's more about the defence with me. Hopefully, with Woodhouse, Armitage, Ellison to come back, we might start to get a more settled defensive lineup, and that will be something to build on. It looks good. You know, they're youngsters; they're learning the game. So I'm hopeful, optimistic that if the defence can come good, we'll be okay, because we're now at the point where we are scoring goals, whereas when it was sort of September, October, we didn't seem to be creating anything. So hopefully it's just a matter of time. I'd be slightly more towards points dropped, in that we did sort of get a little bit bullied by Tamworth in terms of they're new to the league, but they seem to have taken to the league very well, and they know how to basically shithouse their way to results and points. And I think I was name dropped last week, but it seems that whenever we play somebody in the bottom half of the table, I'm now not dreading, but in the build up to the game, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like, how are we going to mess this up today? How are we going to not win? Whereas when we go and play places like Oldham, Forest Green, I'm feeling relatively positive. Like, oh, you never know, we'll do something today. So it's just annoying that this whole streak just keeps continuing, and you just want that one home win. It doesn't matter against who, and we'll start to be climbing the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't really spot that kind of scoring two, 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 three, and still being at least a goal or two away from winning a game at home is quite telling. And yeah, in contrast to what we were talking about back in September, October, where we were praising the defense and thinking, wow, if we can just score a few, then we'll be fine. Yeah, once again, as you mentioned, Woodhouse and Armitage at the back. Ellison wasn't on the bench, but we had two other centre backs on the bench. We had Jenkins and Maghoma, unused subs in the game, and yeah, we didn't make subs until very late. I'm not sure if that was a deliberate ploy, but there didn't seem to be. There seemed to be quite a few shouts from the East Bank to change things and get Stuttle on. Stuttle, of course, now has been recalled by Bournemouth. We don't know the exact reason why, but I'm not sure if he was getting enough minutes to justify being on loan to us, or if he, they'd seen his video clips and said, "Well, come on, let's get you in League Two or something." We'll see.
It'd be interesting to see where he turns up next. If he ends up at somewhere else in the National League, then that will be quite a indictment of how we're doing at the minute, or how we perhaps didn't make the best use of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the question is, are we going to get someone in to replace him? Have we lined someone up? Do we? Well, I mean, I think in general the consensus would be we need someone else as another option, in that attacking line, to give us another option other than Barham, who got his goal for all of his hard work in the recent weeks, chasing balls against 6'5" defenders. Yeah, what was I going to mention? Oh, I missed the first 15 minutes of a home match for the first time in a long time. I completely messed up my trains. Well, I didn't mess up the trains. There was major engineering work. I was just sat here. Well, if you're listening, obviously, I'm just sat at home and was playing a bit of FIFA, had some lunch, and then only then did I check train line. And then the first one that came up was like, you're going to get in at 25 past three. I was like, oh God. So I quickly like hustled, got out the door, and yeah, it was major engineering works between uh, like, I think the Wimbledon area basically. So all the trains are going around the long way, like Virginia Water, that vibe. So yeah, I had to get as quickly as I could to Woking, which was not very quick, and then got my mum to give me a lift, like a taxi service, straight to the ground, and made it in for yeah 15 minutes. I was glad not to miss any goals, but it did seem from the kind of Twitter updates that we had a chance. I mean, that Tyler Frost chance in the first 5 minutes, I think. I mean, he should score that. He should
Mm.
definitely score that. Yeah, and the only other one I was going to mention was that you kind of pertained to, Guy, was that Creaney up top could have had a hat trick for them.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how he didn't put that away. He had a great chance that Dewhurst managed to get a hand on and eventually sit on in the 6 yard box. But yeah, it was entertaining.
Yeah,
I can say
and
that.
this is what we say about. I mean, remember when Tommy Widrington came in, we were told we were going to get lots of goals. And this is at both ends, of course, right? So people we go on about, do we want entertainment or do we want the board, the bore 1-0s? Look, it's enjoyable to watch. I mean, that's what we want, isn't it? Or do we want to? I mean, where do we feel we are now? Because I remember last week, you and Julian were sort of, you know, almost had to be dragged back down to earth a little bit because you started talking about possibilities of us making the playoffs. I mean, after beating Oldham, I mean, where do you sit now?
Well, back where I was 2 weeks ago. I think that's it. That's what one win and 3 points does.
But that's
Yeah.
Aldershot for you this year, isn't it? I mean, one fantastic result, followed by an inability to keep it going. I mean, on the other hand, we are being pretty solid when it comes to draws, and we managed to get through, the Christmas period, cranking out points here and there. So I guess we just don't seem to be able to really sort of put distance between ourselves and the opposition. That does seem to be
Mm.
the big challenge for us. I
Mm.
mean, we really do ride it right to the very end.
My feeling would be, yeah, enjoying the entertainment. It is good from that, but would just like that gap between us and the bottom four to be a bit bigger.
Hmm.
And you do
Yeah.
feel on the sort of run of the games and the results recently that, yeah, we could be 2 to 4 points better off perhaps. And that isn't being like too biased, I don't think.
No, definitely not. I think we have generally looked fine. I think it's just that win column that seems to just not move. And the more draws we had on top of that. It was interesting actually at the weekend. Juventus, finally lost. So we can probably catch them up for draws this season. I reckon. I think they're on 13 out of 21 games. So yeah, we might catch them. Um,
And it's a bit wild when you consider last year we either won or we lost, and then this year it's all about the draws, isn't it?
yeah,
Just
I mean
funny
it's
how it goes.
yeah. I think Tommy mentioned this in his first kind of proper return post-match pre-match interview. He kind of said that we've been in all the games, um, and yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, there's been what 2 or 3 games where we've been thumped, well, annoyingly filed. Who we've got the week after next, week after this. But yeah, but I suppose actually we didn't really mention it, but yeah, Tommy was I think officially back in the dugout this weekend, and did a lap of the ground. So it was good to see him back. Obviously, he would have loved to have had that Theo Widdrington pile driver go into the top corner, but for Jazz saying getting across to it. So yeah, it's good to see him back. Hopefully we can bounce on this weekend, and get into the quarterfinals of the FA Trophy. Um, what I was going to ask Ian, because you said about bottom half teams. Would you class Boreham Wood as a top half, as a kind of top team in the mental standings of how excited or optimistic you are?
No, they're it's a game I'm not looking forward to in terms of, yeah, how are we going to fail to win this one? Yeah, because also, like with sometimes, when we played Braintree or we've got Fylde coming up, you are worried about them, but you think, yeah, they're down the bottom. Okay, have they got any good players? Whereas Boreham Wood, yes, it's the level below, but they're on a real strong run. And again, they were relegated last year, and that was a bit of a surprise. Probably shouldn't have been, and they went down with quite a high points total. Most seasons that'd be good enough to be 2, 3 places higher. So yeah, I'm definitely worried about Saturday, and I would see them as that lower place rather than a top team.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like extending the league to a like 25th position or something, and there they are. Yeah, so I think Boreham Wood got I think they got 52 last year or 51, definitely above 50, which is always that a kind of arbitrary golden number in National League terms. So yeah, but they beat us 3-0 back in April when we were just dying for a win, just something to get us into the. I think we were just on the edge of the playoffs, eighth at that point. And you think, I mean, I thought they were brilliant. To be honest. I couldn't believe that they were down the bottom. I can't remember who scored. Oh, it was Tishimanga that scored one of the goals. I think Souza scored one. He's still there. Maybe Tyrone Marsh scored the other. I shouldn't be remembering this, but anyway. So Boreham Wood were on a 14-game unbeaten streak in all competitions. They went on an absolute run, or including the FA Trophy, of course, which they're still in. But on Saturday, they lost 4-1 at home to Chippenham Town, which is a bit of a random result. Matt McClure got, I think, like 70 minutes or so in that team. They have, however, won their last 5 away games. And the last 4 meetings that we've had with Boreham Wood have been won by the away team, which is quite an interesting thing. So that means we've won there twice in a row, which I remember the Minoga goal last season, but can't remember the one before that. Yeah, so as Ian kind of mentioned, they are currently top of National League South by goal difference to, I think there's 4 teams on the same amount of points. They're all on 52. Oh, that's where 52 came from. That's because they're on that at the moment. There we go.
I think there's 7 teams spread across 3 points as well.
Yeah, love that. That's a pure because I think that was a similar in the National League North last season. There was a good 5 or 6 teams going for the title by January. So yeah,
Yeah, and I saw Torquay at Slough last week, and 2-2. Slough managed to sort of burgle a point from Torquay, but yeah, they didn't look anything special. They might well be good enough to go on and win the league, but didn't feel like particularly fair them next season. But let's hope we're around to play them.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, basically you'll know a few players of Boreham Wood, of course, because we seem to play them every year since they've been in the National League, and we have since like 2015. Um, Kwesi Appiah, who played for the Shots, 2 appearances back in 2012. That's a real throwback. So I think he's in his mid-30s now. So he was just a youngster from Crystal Palace at that point. He's currently their top goal scorer, I think, with 18 from 22 appearances so far this season. They've just got Matt Rush in from Sutton. He scored 4 and 4. And they've still got Tyrone Marsh, Eriko Souza, and also Junior Dixon from Birmingham to front up their attacking suite of players. And of course, at the back, they've got Nathan Ashmore in goal, who always seems to have an absolute worldy game against us. So yeah, quite right to be slightly worried about this team. Guy, I'll come to you first.
See, I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic than Ian because I think, yes, they may be below us in terms of the league, but they're flying, right? And as Ian pointed out, we tend to do quite well against the teams that are higher up the division that are doing quite well versus those who are further down. So I'm of the opinion that actually we could probably do quite well here because maybe we're going into this as the underdogs. That said, of course, they did come off a 4-1 defeat against Chippenham at the weekend, so they do have a point to prove, which could be a problem for us. But I did watch the highlights of their last couple of games, so against Hampton and Richmond and also against Chippenham. And what struck me is they are very quick at passing the ball. And so if they where they were doing quite well against Hampton and Richmond in their 2-0 win, they were chasing down the balls, taking control in midfield, picking up loose balls, getting the ball, picking them up in the tackles, and then passing them very quickly forward. And that seems to what we. So if we want, we need to probably close them down in that respect. And maybe the football pitch, our pitch, might help in that respect. So in terms of thinking about, how do we contain them? That's what I would suggest. And what we just when it comes to sort of going forward, I think the question that you posed at the very outset, what more could we do against Tamworth? I think it applies here as well, because when we're getting the ball, we're playing it forward, we're making half chances, I would say, not full chances, but half chances. What we just need to do is to just make some of these half chances a little bit more concrete. And I think maybe what we need to be doing there is playing the ball, getting the ball through as quickly as possible our way. Of course, the flip side to that is the pitch may also bog down for us as well in that respect. So, I think we can contain them. I think if we change the game plan a little bit, we sort of drive forward much more quickly, I think we have a chance. So I'm okay for it.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. But I don't know if we mentioned it for the Tamworth game really, but yeah, we were a little bit slow getting it forward. We were kind of camped in their half for quite long periods, and then they'd have a couple of minutes up our end and look more dangerous than we had for 10 minutes, I think.
But that's the point I've been making about watching National League. If you don't get the ball forward fast enough, the other side gets its players behind the ball, and then it's really difficult. You can't walk the ball in behind them, and then you're forced to either sort of play out to the sides or try and sort of play it over the top. Trying to put in a long ball shot. And sure, Barrett's been putting in some great lobs in the last few weeks, but you can't expect that to be happening every week. So yeah, I think really, if you want to have a good chance, you really need to reduce the number of defenders between you and the goal, and that means getting the ball forward as quickly as possible.
Yes, indeed. I suppose we can draw this one, so we may well be in for another draw, but it will go directly to penalties. No extra time needed for the fifth round. Winners receive £6,000. Losers receive 1,750. So yeah, it's quite a big difference, I don't know why they don't just, I don't know, keep it quite even. Ian, I'll come to you for your kind of a roundup on your thoughts ahead of this one on Saturday.
Yeah, I was mentioned a bit concerned just because it does have that feeling of, the lower placed team is going to be able to knock out the National League side in Aldershot. And of course, in the trophy so far, there's not many National League teams left. Most of the teams are from the lower level. So, yeah, and we're into that point now where you start to get excited, especially if we can find a way through on Saturday.
Yeah, make a way through in that. Make our way through in the Hampshire Cup next Tuesday if that postponed game goes ahead. And obviously we're into the last day of the National League Cup. So would it be unheralded to have a treble and get relegated? Or is that ever happened? Not sure. Let's hope one of
Definitely
those
not.
one of those cups is transferred for a couple of points in the league. Grand. Yeah, I'm broadly. I think I'm more in Ian's boat. Just by virtue of Boreham Wood. Looking back at the stats, they don't seem to be like our bogey team. But in my head, I feel like every time I've watched them, they've been either the better team, or it's been boring, or it's been dull to watch. Usually at their place, to be honest, because you pay £22 and you're just you're like 3 steps high on a slab in like a soulless place. And there's nowhere to drink other than the spoons in Boreham Wood or Elstree or wherever it is. So I've just not got don't get good vibes from them. Ashmore will do something, to wind up the crowd. Then it will get toxic, and then I'll wish I'd never even left the house. Something like that will happen. But I'm hopeful that Woodhouse can keep Cressy quiet. Armitage will be on the other man that's up top. I'm presuming they'll go Appiah and Matt Rush up their two main strikers. But yeah, that's quite formidable for a National League South side to come here with those two strikers. Um, Grand. Well, we'll park the Boreham Wood stuff. Onto less exciting matters, I suppose. As I mentioned, the winners get £6,000. Aldershot were fined £4,000 for by the FA for sectarian chanting, specifically during the Oldham Athletic game last August, which Shots won 4-1. And there's a kind of 23-page FA document kind of explaining why the charge has been made, why the fine's been given, and explaining what Aldershot Town as a club have done and the kind of action they've taken. The kind of the first point I suppose to make was this is only that one incident, I think, because there's audio of it, and that's the only way that they could kind of specifically charge the club. But it was happening throughout 2024, at most home games, most away games. So it's quite amazing that it's only this one incident. Because I would have thought they would have maybe, I mean, the FA could have literally created a portfolio of instances where this has happened at home and away games, which wouldn't show us in the best light as well. Yeah, I'm not sure what the kind of solution is, but there was a kind of impromptu solution, which was to turn the tune of that song into a James Henry song, and that seems to have stopped it completely. The only worry is as soon as James Henry leaves, that I assume that tune will be back. So I'm not sure where we go from here. Guy, yeah, your general thoughts on the fine that we've seen earlier this week.
Well, I mean, the problem, I mean, we were discussing it a little bit before we came on. I mean, the thing is that, I mean, if you want to call this, an element of racism, it's very difficult to, football is basically a mirror of society, and racism, it's not caused by football. It's just that football grounds provide the space for people to act in all sorts of behavior, and particularly in an anonymous way, right? Because you're in a crowd. It's difficult to identify you. It's difficult to pull you out. It's not, that said, there is a question as to, how serious, more generally, authorities have been taking racism. There's been numerous instances. You can see this up at the sort of the national, the European levels where club. You can see in Spain, for example, where sort of racist chanting happens and very little gets done. And it's really down to the clubs to do it, because players themselves, they have to play the game, right? The fans, I mean, it's difficult as a fan individually to go up and stop people, doing things that are offensive. So really, it's the clubs, and ultimately, if the clubs don't do enough about it, then the sense, the feeling, the atmosphere is going to be detrimental. You can sort of understand why they don't take a lead in it, or they don't do very much to begin with, because they don't want to sort of turn on their supporters. The problem is, if you don't take it, do something about it, then eventually what happens is you create an atmosphere that people don't want to be there. So that it really is, it does need to be sorted out. It's not great, but yeah, and it's frustrating because, of course, also it means that the club gets fined. You just mentioned the fact that there's £6,000 on the table for winning this weekend. We've lost 4,000. I mean, that's 4,000 money that could be £4,000 that could be spent on other things rather than fines, because a bunch of people decided to chant sectarian things. So it's not great at all.
No, and I suppose if you kind of totted up and gave 4,000 as a sum for each time that I've heard it in 2024, then you can basically offset all the money we got from Port Vale and Bristol City, basically, because
we can ill afford it. I mean, we struggle. I mean, we've talked about Stussel going back, to Bournemouth. I mean, we're in a position where we don't have, we do rely, at our level, we do rely a lot on loan players because we're not having to necessarily pay their wages. So we can't bring the players in to pay them out of our own pocket. But of course, if you're relying on loan players, if they start to do well, then you lose them. So in an ideal world, we would be bringing in players that we can afford, that we can pay in, week out. And if we're having to spend money on a bunch of people sort of doing sectarian chanting, and we're getting clamped down by the FA, then that's money that we don't have to spend on players to spend on the development of football at Aldershot.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ian, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, my frustration's mainly over the money. Of course, it goes without saying that chant is completely unacceptable. But I'm just wondering how many of the people that were singing this chant also sing the chant about how they don't care about Azim. And, part of the unhappiness with Azim seems to be that, oh, they don't think he's putting enough money into the club. And then you've got people chanting things that best left in the past, actively costing the club money. And it's difficult for the club to do something, but equally it does sound like from the notes of the fine that perhaps they didn't do enough in terms of the sort of mitigation, the preparation. But equally, it's hard to see what they can do because one of the games you hear a public address announcement saying, please stop the sectarian chanting right away. And you get all kinds of people saying, well, what was that pathetic announcement for? So you do feel like the club is in a bit of a no-win situation. And you've also got a lot of people sort of playing the what about game, like, oh, what's going to happen to Rangers for what they were doing at Manchester United last week? And you do hear this chant, unfortunately, at other clubs. I wouldn't say that frequently, but it certainly happens elsewhere. But yeah, the whole thing is just very sad indeed.
Yeah, yeah. And mentioning the kind of the tannoy, I can't remember which game it was. There was at
It
least
might have been Maidenhead or something.
potentially
It was
there was,
around the period of the Oldham that obviously was the reason
yeah.
for the fine.
Mm. There was. I just remember I couldn't hear any words from the tannoy where I was in the East Bank, which was probably quite a packed area, I suppose. You can hear it come on, you can hear it crackle into place, but there was no clarity on the words. We don't have a booming tannoy system,
Yeah, I
especially
was on
not
the
in the East Bank.
slab, I think, for most games this in the last 12 months, and yeah, it was clear enough what the announcement was there, but it wasn't much more, and I don't know what more you could say other than please stop this. We will get fined, or we could have the ground closed, or it's a criminal offence, everything like that.
Mm.
But again, I don't know what the club can do here, because if they don't do it, they'll probably be in even bigger trouble. And if
Mm.
they do it, people just either ignore it or it actually encourages them to go harder with it. So,
Mm.
Yeah,
yeah, just so frustrating.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and as you said, best left in the past, and hopefully we can park it for the rest of the time, even when James Henry goes and that tune is an empty vessel. I hope he
Are
doesn't
you
get.
sure he doesn't want James Henry's going to stay with us until the end of his career?
That would
No,
be
I
that
mean
would be
since
fine
he's
by
become
me.
the darling of the wreck and the
He
East
is,
Bank.
honestly.
You
Yeah.
know, you have those there are some of those players out there that you just never want to see leave, and hopefully we've encouraged him to stay until the end.
You know, I think yeah, staying up will be will be one boost to keep him for another
Are
year
we
if he
not
wants.
are we still good enough not to go down?
God, since the turn of the year, I'm not. I don't even look at 2024 results anymore. Can't be bothered.
Mm.
2025 is all it's about. They, they don't look great, but they look fine, don't they?
I mean,
The Oldham game has helped.
it's quite striking how we've gone from beginning of the season, the first month or so we were talking, oh yeah, we have a good chance to sort of make the playoffs if we continue at this pace, and free scoring, top scoring club in the entire country to,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
okay, now, yeah, do you remember that?
No.
Now we're sort of, can we sort of get a home win now as opposed to just a draw? But I think this is the thing. We are playing well. We do seem to be there and thereabouts. It's just we just don't seem to have the consistency, the form. And we've talked about it in previous weeks, sort of constant chopping and changing at the back and it's not all the fault of defenders, it's injuries as well. So we're just not firing that so far this season, it feels like. And hopefully the cup can be our redemption.
Yeah, well, we scored 8 last time in the FA Trophy, so here's to at least half of that against Boreham Wood on Saturday. Great, we'll end it there. Thank you, Guy, and thank you, Ian.
Thank you.